Meghan Markle is in deep trouble again. And this time, there's no palace, no streaming giant, and no sympathetic headlines to save her. What's happening behind the scenes right now isn't just another public tantrum, it's a full-blown meltdown, with millions of dollars on the line and Meghan's Hollywood dreams crashing harder than ever. It all started with the one thing she didn't see coming: rejection from every major studio she tried to court. We're talking Netflix, Paramount, Warner Bros., HBO. Each one either pulled out of deals or flat out ghosted her. After a string of flops, behind-the-scenes drama, and growing frustration from executives, Meghan's reputation in the industry has hit rock bottom. These weren't just rumors. There were real projects lined up, but they fell apart one by one, leaving her scrambling for relevance. And the worst part? The numbers. According to insiders, Meghan lost out on tens of millions of dollars in combined film roles, partnerships, and production deals. These were the kinds of opportunities that could have redefined her career, but instead, they vanished almost overnight. One source even claimed Meghan had already started prepping her team for red carpet appearances before the ink on the contracts had dried, a classic mistake. Now, instead of dominating Hollywood with prestige, projects and groundbreaking content, she's stuck doing damage control on Instagram and pretending her podcast is thriving. Behind closed doors, the energy is very different. Meghan is reportedly livid. She feels betrayed, not just by the studios, but by the industry as a whole. And she's not keeping quiet about it. Privately and publicly, she's been on IR, a tirade, blaming everyone from corporate executives to the US government for her downfall. Yes, you read that right. According to Meghan, it's not just sexism in Hollywood. It's also the government's fault she isn't landing roles. She's painting herself as a victim of what she calls toxic masculinity, accusing studio heads of prioritizing male leads and shutting women like her out. But here's the thing. A lot of people aren't buying it. Even former supporters are starting to question whether the problem is really the system, or just Meghan herself. Industry insiders describe her as overly demanding, hard to work with, and completely out of touch with the realities of post-pandemic Hollywood. One executive put it bluntly: "It's not that she's a woman, it's that she's Meghan Markle." Harsh, but it says it all. While Meghan tries to spin the narrative into a larger battle for equality, critics point out that plenty of actresses, good, bad, and everything in between, are still landing major roles. The market hasn't collapsed for women in film. It's just collapsed for her. What's even more telling is how fiercely she clings to the title of actress, as if it still carries weight. Outside of Suits, which wasn't even a breakout hit when it originally aired, Meghan hasn't delivered anything substantial on screen in years. Yet she continues to talk as though she's a misunderstood, Oscar-worthy talent, shut out by a cruel, misogynistic system. Studios just don't want to work with her anymore. And after her latest rant, where she practically accused the entire industry of conspiring against her, that already short list of allies has gotten even shorter. Still, Meghan isn't backing down. She's doubling down, using social media to rally sympathy and present herself as a misunderstood artist. But the real question is anyone still listening? What really set things off was her desperate attempt to win back Netflix. Meghan reportedly reached out directly to Ted Sarandos, practically begging for a one-off deal. Something, anything, to keep her name in the game. But Ted wasn't having it. After all the drama, missed deadlines, and creative disagreements, from their first round of partnerships, the answer was a firm no. Not even a meeting, just silence. For someone who once believed she had Hollywood in the palm of her hand, that had to sting. Insiders say she was stunned by the rejection. In her mind, the relationship with Netflix wasn't over, just on pause. But executives had made up their minds long ago. The constant tension, inflated ego, and her tendency to play the victim had worn everyone down. They were done. Meghan's mistake was thinking she could spin her way back into their favor with a sob story. Instead, things spiraled. She launched into long, emotionally charged monologues about being a woman in a broken industry, calling Hollywood a toxic boys' club, and accusing the media of crafting a narrative designed to erase her. She even claimed that losing these roles was a personal attack on her values as a woman, a mother, and a creative voice. The rants sounded less like reasoned arguments and more like campaign speeches. And she didn't stop at blaming executives or networks. Meghan began taking subtle jabs at other actresses, hinting that they were being handed opportunities she was far more qualified for. She never mentioned names publicly, but people inside the industry knew exactly who she meant. The move didn't earn her any new allies. It only made her seem bitter and out of touch. In typical Meghan fashion, she tried to reframe the narrative on her own terms. She pivoted hard into her podcast and social media, suddenly claiming these were always her true passions. According to her, rejection from Hollywood studios was actually a blessing in disguise because now she could speak directly to the people. But let's be honest. If she had landed even one of those big-budget film deals, that podcast would have been dropped in a heartbeat. The audience isn't blind. They've noticed the shift in tone. What started as glamour and royalty has devolved into complaints and conspiracy theories, and fans are beginning to tune out. Podcast viewership has been inconsistent at best, and engagement on her Instagram posts is slowly declining. Even though she's doubled down on emotional captions and behind-the-scenes family photos. Meanwhile, her critics have found fresh fuel. Critics argue that Meghan is weaponizing gender issues to mask her career failures, using feminism as a shield while avoiding the real reasons studios have distanced themselves, her own behavior. Even some of her former defenders now admit she may not be the feminist icon they once believed in. The more she talks, the more it feels like she's trying to convince herself she's still relevant. But Hollywood has a short memory and an even shorter tolerance for public drama. And when the industry turns its back, it rarely turns around again. Meghan seems to realize this now, which is why she's speaking louder, pushing harder, and clinging to whatever platform will still have her. Her latest strategy is all about control, controlling the narrative, the optics, and the messaging. She's attempting yet another rebrand, not as an actress or a duchess, but as a digital personality, the kind who rises above the noise, posts inspirational quotes over beach photos, and drops subtle jabs at critics while pretending to be unbothered. Behind the curated posts, however, the reality is very different. There's frustration, panic, and most of all, fear. Fear that the final doors are closing and there's no next act waiting. Those close to her say she's leaning harder than ever into social media because she believes it's the only space she can still control. On Instagram, Meghan can curate the lighting, crop the narrative, and filter out anything that threatens the image. But in Hollywood, there's no filter strong enough to fix a reputation. Executives talk, assistants talk, even publicists talk. And what they're saying isn't pretty. Studios have described her as uncompromising to a fault. Meetings dragged on for hours because she insisted on having final creative control over everything, even when she didn't fully understand the process. She left notes on scripts that had nothing to do with story or character, but instead demanded shifts in the narrative to cast her in a more favorable light. One executive said working with her felt like constantly navigating a minefield made of ego. It wasn't just difficult, and it was exhausting. And it's not only the studios that grew tired, fans have too. The comments under her recent posts are now a mix of diehard loyalty and subtle eye rolls. People feel like they've seen this movie before. The rise, the fall, and the self-pity tour. Meghan plays the lead, the victim, and the director. But the plot never changes, and the stakes just keep getting lower. The strange part is that she seems oddly fine with it. There's an almost forced optimism in everything she posts now, as if pretending things are fine will eventually make them fine. She speaks about self-worth, empowerment, and healing, but it all feels like a distraction from the bigger picture. A crumbling public image, a career in freefall, and a future that looks smaller by the day. Her defenders argue that she's simply staying true to herself, that Hollywood turned its back because she refused to play the game. But even that storyline is beginning to wear thin. Refusing to play the game only works when you're winning on your own terms. Meghan isn't. She's lost out on major roles, burned valuable bridges with top-tier studios, and is now clinging to a platform that thrives more on carefully crafted illusion than on genuine impact. There's also talk of her pivoting toward brand deals and lifestyle products. An eye cream line here, a wellness ebook there, maybe even a small clothing collaboration. Nothing is confirmed, but insiders say she's exploring independent creative ventures, which sounds suspiciously like code for monetizing whatever little buzz she can still generate. It's a survival move, not a power play. And maybe That's the saddest part of all. The woman who once walked royal red carpets and envisioned herself producing Oscar-level content is now hoping that Instagram sponsorships, niche brand partnerships, and podcast ads will keep the lights on. This isn't about chasing fame anymore. It's about staying visible, staying in the loop, and desperately staying relevant in a world that's moving on faster than she can adapt. In the end, Meghan might still believe she was destined for something far greater, but belief only takes you so far. At some point, the world stops listening, and all you're left with is the faint, hollow echo of what could have been.